Today, I'm very excited to welcome to the Artist I Meet channel, Pyjama Shark. So, yes. And please introduce yourself. Tell us where you're from, what you're doing mainly.
Hi, Hans Ellis. Great to speak with you. I'm Pyjama Shark from Centurion, Pretoria by birth. And I grew up in Nelspruit on a plot. First, I lived in a tent, then I lived in a container, and then I lived in an actual house that my dad was building while we lived in the container. So I had a bit of a hippie lifestyle, even though my parents don't really identify as hippies, because they taught music at my school. And that was how they paid for my schooling. And since they are musicians, I grew up very musical, and that has become my life. And I also work in the audio industry, so that's how I've been surviving.
You're in the music industry and you do sound and all those things. So what got you into the industry initially?
My mother and father used to be a band called Marimba, and they got quite far at the time. They played at Mandela's inauguration.
Wow.
And so forth. So at some point they also did restaurant shows, background music, and I became very seriously involved in their background music sets. I began adding pieces and collaborating on their pieces. And that's where it started. And from there, I had so many musician friends because of my parents that sometimes those friends would invite me onto the stage where they were performing. Say, for example, the Blue Moon here in Nelspruit. And we know someone by the name of Jamie who just gave me his Epiphone guitar and said, "Go for it." And I played one of my instrumental pieces in front of a couple hundred people, and that was the first time I played on stage.
Wow.
In a serious context.
And what
the rest
age
of the time
were
at
you?
school? Then, I mean, that was actually before high school. So that was when I was about 11. And then, and then in high school, throughout high school, I learned a lot about how to perform, from performing in the chapel to the whole school, but also by realizing how the kids responded to different musicians at the school. There were other kids who also performed. There was a guy there called Soap, or Sipelele was his real name.
Oh, okay.
And he played guitar much like Jimi Hendrix does. And he, in fact, even looked a lot like Jimi Hendrix. So it worked. And we were in competition because of him, because he's a very competitive person. And I learned that there's a lot I can learn from other performers. There was another guy, Alex. He did tapping guitar, and the three of us were the main guitarists at the school, and we had a lot of fun at gala evenings and things like that.
Well, that sounds fascinating, and maybe in some interview in future we can talk about all these instruments and the way people are playing it, and because I mean I don't really know what tapping guitar means, but it would be interesting to find out.
Sure, I'd love that. There's so many technique things to talk about, for sure.
Sure. And then I guess, well, it's deeply rooted for you. It came from, even before you could speak, it seems.
Correct, man. I played guitar since I was 6.
Wow.
How it happened was, in fact, that my dad told me, "You want to play violin?" And I said no. And then when I turned 6, he said, "Here's a guitar. You're going to play it now." And I said, "Fine."
And you just picked it up and played?
Well, he taught me the first songs that I knew. He taught me the first chords that I knew and the first scales that I knew. or yeah, and from there I I discovered that the guitar is actually an extension of my body.
Oh,
It's just it's
yeah,
just my life now. You know, it's so
yeah.
important to me that I don't see it as a separate thing anymore. I sang since before I played guitar. So
Okay.
I've been singing forever and I've been playing guitar since I was 6.
I see there's a keyboard behind you and so on. Do you only play guitar, or do you play other instruments as well?
I love using my laptop and my MIDI controller keyboard
Okay.
to arrange songs and add um, keyboard sounds or synth sounds. Sometimes I hire friends who are pianists on a more serious level than me, and I like to use that keyboard to program drums as well, and to play bass lines in and so forth. I've played bass on an actual bass other times. It depends what I'm looking for, what I'm going for, but yeah.
I see. Well, I think it's needless to ask the next question, and that is if you experienced any resistance from people when you started off in your career. I guess no resistance from your family, because you are from a musical family and your aunt is also a very accomplished musician. And yeah, but you know, like at school and maybe from other people, did you did you get any flack from anybody?
The most resistance I received was actually from my high school girlfriend and her mother. They had this idea that I should become a nurse.
Oh, yes.
As a profession. And then I can keep music as a hobby. And I just remember thinking, I have no experience with any of that, and I've not taken science as a subject. So, you know, how on earth would I transition from music to becoming a nurse? So I just said no, and I'm not going to do that.
Well,
and yeah, that's a great profession, but it was never going to be what I do. You know, being a nurse is not my thing, and it's I have respect for people who are, but I can't do that.
No, well, you have your talents, eh? I mean,
Yeah.
it's very different from nursing. So, how would you describe your art? You know, the art that you typically create. How would you describe it?
Well, it's appropriate that you say art, because
yeah, no, definitely,
my music is art music. I love to incorporate life experiences and musical instruments that arise as a result that aren't necessarily traditional instruments. So this is something I received most recently that's just got a few little bells on it. And I'm definitely going to put this in a song written for the person that I got this from. I went through bottles at a shop and I chose this one because it has the best reverberation and the best pitch, and it really creates a beautiful tone. It's got that tone, it's got this tone over there, so it's got a nice interval. If I play on both ends, I'm going to attach this to a pole at one point, and I'm going to have a prop or two.
It almost sounds tribal.
That's the idea. Right? It's like a melodic percussive instrument. And I've got another one here that's actually supposed to be in the kitchen. This big thing has a tone and a half, right?
It does.
It also has a visual art component. I like to draw and paint and use Photoshop to create imagery. And I create an individual image for every one of my songs. And I do prints of those to then make available to people who are big enough fans that they would like what they've seen in the booklets or on the YouTube video material. And the songs I do are very the songs I do contain a lot of contrasts, I like to focus on very delicate guitar playing, and then abruptly switch over to the most aggressive guitar playing that I can think of, because I have a very wide appreciation for music. I love listening to heavy metal. I love listening to classical music. So I like to make wacky music that you can still take seriously and reflect on and feel something from, but that isn't one genre by a long shot. So every song has multiple genres within each song. That's something that I can never stop doing, because it keeps me from being bored.
Yeah, great. Is there something that you would consider to be a unique feature of your art that someone would say, well, that's Pyjama Shark?
Self-developmental music is a good description for what I do, because I write my lyrics in such a way that I learn to deal with my problems, and the hope is then that someone else will feel a sense of catharsis from how I learned to deal with my issues, to give them a shortcut through something similar that they are experiencing.
Wow.
And that's mixed in with musical components that reflect the emotions that I am speaking about. So if I'm angry, that goes into a certain song. But if the anger is unhealthy, I will conclude the song with a part that expresses how that anger should perhaps be channeled in a healthier direction. And I'm very serious about lyrics, because I've noticed how often lyrics can be very debased. And I am serious about writing lyrics that are wholesome, even though it may still come across as disturbing to sensitive listeners. Thematically, in terms of language, I never use curse words, but thematically, it's for the disturbed to be in a better condition, and for those who are too comfortable to think for a change about things that they're uncomfortable thinking about. It's a lot. It's a lot of words for a simple question, but I hope that paints
no, but it's great to hear that. Wow, that really makes it unique. And also something that just occurred to me, where did the name Pyjama Shark originate from?
I've been asked, and I'm glad you asked, because if you had forgotten, maybe I would have forgotten to tell the story. It's basically due to my mom being into fishing, and she caught an actual pyjama shark once. At a beach in Neisner. And I had no idea this type of shark exists, but
neither did I.
I was told to, it's such a unique shark. I was told to come over and look at the shark that she caught while she was trying to fish for regular fish. And this type of shark has the same texture as my bald head if I have my hair shaved off. And that was bizarre, and I thought, but wait a minute, not only is it true that its texture is the same as my bald head, it is also the perfect name as far as juxtaposition goes, because I grew up listening to various artists, and I saw names as a big deal, and I noticed you have crazy names like Fatboy Slim, that contains a contrast, and Marilyn Manson, that contains a contrast. And I thought, I want to have a name like that expresses that I can be aggressive, but that I can also be gentle. And Pyjama Shark does that perfectly. So it stuck.
That's very interesting. So where do you find your inspiration?
I find my inspiration from all the music that I've listened to that elevates my existence, that makes me feel like life's worth living and that excites me. You know, I grew up on Queen. I grew up on classical music on vinyl in the house. I paid a lot of attention to soundtracks to cartoons and video games because sound was always just ingrained as a focus of mine. And I couldn't help but notice that music seems to change people's mood, and it can be for the better, and it can be very powerful. Definitely. So I thought, well, okay, of course I have to enter this aspect of life. Of course I have to use this, because I noticed as I was playing my instrumental pieces that I wrote as a young boy that people would not only compliment what I'm doing, but they would also say it made them feel relaxed.
Yeah.
And it's ironic in a way because I write very aggressive music nowadays, but writing relaxed things is still a very important component of what I do. And I want to really have a beneficial impact on not only a person's mood, but also their psychology, if possible. And that's what I try to do for myself through music.
Is there a specific person that inspires you to keep doing what you're doing today?
I have to say I'm very inspired by 12 Foot Ninja, because they also do genre mashing, genre hopping. And Devin Townsend, he released a record called Empath. And it's a very long record with a lot of different songs, but all of them are crazy. And he's a crazy guy, but he's also humble, and he's also all about combating depression and combating the strange internet reality we live in these days, whilst trying to use it at the same time. And the way he does technically advanced music while also mixing in silliness and fun inspired me to go, okay, I've been wanting to do this for years. He's doing it, why shouldn't I? You know, 12 Foot Ninja, same thing. They are hilarious and not just entertaining on a musical level. They also have very funny music videos, and that made me go, I have to. If it's working for certain artists, why shouldn't I also make it work for myself? So those two artists always keep me going.
Wow. Okay. So can you give us a bit of insight in your creative process?
Sure.
Where do you normally start, and how does it evolve from there?
Well, I do use my music to process problems in my life, and I have problems that I believe I have overcome to the best of my ability, and I do believe I am learning lessons to the best of my ability and becoming the best version of myself. And some of the challenges that I've faced include my father being an alcoholic, who has since been sobering up, thankfully. And at the time, there was a lot of drama in the house, and I became a parent at times when I was still a child.
Sure.
So that reversal of roles was unhealthy, and I couldn't understand what was going on at the time. But I realized that turned me into a people pleaser, and it made me feel responsible for other people's emotions. And I've since learned that I can only really help myself. And if I am honest with myself about the discomfort that I've experienced, that is the way through those things. And yeah, I've also exposed myself to unhealthy relationships beyond the compulsory familial relationships that I had growing up, because the examples I had were not always the best. And it made me choose to spend time with girlfriends and friends who I thought are a continuation of where I'm coming from, but who I could have a better shot with. Someone who would be the way that my father was, but who would learn from the mistakes that my father didn't learn from at the time. And that never happened. And that's because I chose someone who had similar hang-ups to my father, not realizing that they also have to work on themselves, and they can't be who I expect them to be. And I realized after a very long time that I have everything I need within myself, and I just needed positive people to point that out to me and to give me the encouragements I need, and to just give me some pointers to show me that I already have the answers, and that I can have all the positive self-esteem I need without seeking it from others. And that's been a very helpful journey. Been rough at times, but it's good.
Sure. Well, what an insight for a young man like you. It's remarkable. And thank you for being so honest and open about everything.
Thanks.
I think really, people can learn from this, and from your music, as you say. To come back to the question on your creative process, I guess that is a lot of those kind of emotions where it starts.
Yeah, we write things that we feel, and we don't always know what that feeling means. At first, when I wrote songs, I wrote very melancholic, overly sad guitar pieces, and people would tell me, this is just a 6-minute long chunk of sadness, why should I listen to this? And I learned that, okay, well, I need to write shorter songs depending on the context, and I need to find hope and joy in my personal life to be inspired to write joyful music as well. And if I do write sad music, it has to have an edge to it that makes it positive. And I do feel that even though something might be healthy for me, sometimes a person who's listening to it won't benefit from that song given their specific circumstances. So I'm very careful about also welcoming criticism and telling people to find what's good for them, because one of my songs is called Music Will Be There, and it's about what music has meant to me and how music was actually a surrogate father at times. And yet the song concludes by saying, as long as the sound you fly with isn't really a prison cell. That's one of the final phrases, because sometimes you can use music as escapism, and it can become a negative thing if you indulge too much. It can be a drug, just like any other drug. And that's why it's important to listen to uplifting music, sometimes even when you're feeling sad, and to listen to heavier music carefully, with caution. So that's also expressed in the music video. I made a music video for that song, Music Will Be There, and I bury a bunch of CDs in the dirt, and one of those CDs is mine, because depending on who the listener is, maybe my music is something they should put behind them so that they can listen to something else,
Understand. Sure. Following from that, is there a hidden meaning? I don't really want to say hidden meaning, rather a specific symbolism in any of your art.
Oh yeah, I love Easter eggs and double meanings. I love that. I have a song that I wrote for my brother called High Five, and in that song I have little musical motifs that actually come from other music. that actually comes from other music, other musical pieces. Like the theme song of the Spider-Man cartoon from the 90s, the theme song of the X-Men cartoon from the 90s, the lick as it is known in the jazz circles,
Okay.
followed by another lick that is also common in the jazz circles, but both are jokes at this point. So someone who knows about that will hear that and think, oh, that's what's going on here, you know.
Yeah.
And I also have songs that sound like they're just about silly things that actually refer to deeper things. For example, I have a song called The Mosquitoes. And in that song, I'm being attacked by mosquitoes and I kill them. And the mosquitoes actually represent the powers that be, and how they can be a pest. So that's not expressed explicitly, but when I make a music video for that song, I'll probably make that more obvious.
Okay. Well, that's very interesting. So which piece of art actually or performance or recording that you've done are you the most proud of, and why?
Well, I have to say high five again, because I worked the hardest on that song, but also had the most fun on that song due to the subject matter being positive and it being about my brother and wanting to show my love for my brother, who I didn't grow up with, but who I would like to spend more time with. And he introduced me to a lot of the music that I know, and a lot of the more technically impressive music that I know. And for that reason, I tried to make this song one of my most technically impressive songs. So it has a lot of unexpected twists and turns. Plus the music video that goes with it is so rich with hundreds of pieces of footage of video games that my brother and I grew up playing, either together or separately, and movies that we both like or that I know he likes, and so on. So that one's definitely the piece that I am the most proud of at this point.
Great. Well, you already mentioned that you often collaborate with others. What is the process? How do you do that? Or is it just as it comes?
It is just as it comes.
Okay.
So far. There's a song I did called Vanity, and on that song I collaborated with Cholwe Chiyoka, a girl I knew in high school. And the way that started is, in school, one of the art exhibitions done by the art students caused Cholwe to comment to me by saying, I want to commission you to do a painting for me that has to go in this art exhibition. It's a blank canvas and it must be titled Vanity. And I thought that's very funny because she's commenting on art being a peculiar industry when it comes to how much paintings sell for, and how much attention artists can focus on themselves, and how certain pieces of art can't necessarily be referred to as impressive as people might want to think, etc. So that was her commentary on all of that. And then years later, I said, okay, well, here, I made the artwork and I made a blank canvas, but I made it black because I had duct tape available that was black, and I thought that would look even better than white.
Okay.
And then I said, well, why don't we make a song to go with the painting called Vanity? And she said, okay, great. And I wrote some lyrics and I asked her to sing some of the parts, and we had a lot of fun making it. And I also made a lot of the musical elements out of the song, using in the song out of preset recorded material in the software that I didn't even really compose. So that's a further commentary on the vanity of beat makers calling themselves musicians, but really just slamming things together that they found. But that's also an art form in itself, you know. So I enjoy hip hop for real. Like I enjoy that genre as well. But yeah, we worked on that song together, and much later I also worked together with a beatboxer who has just got an incredible ability to make sounds that's similar, that resemble a drum kit, just using this area of his face, man. It's incredible how these guys do these things. But he's not someone who's known for it. He's just a friend I had. And yeah, he's not known for doing this. He's just someone who I met along the way once, and we had fun, and we decided to record a couple things, and he's going to feature on my third album when I finally get around to bringing all of that to fruition. And that's going to be exciting. So I like working with artists who bring something to the music that makes it even more spicy and unexpected.
Yeah. So if you could choose anybody in the world that you could collaborate with, who would that be?
12-Foot Ninja, immediately. Yeah. That would just be sensible, because we're already both crazy, so it would be fun.
Yeah, so I guess you've explained that already, eh? So so what is your favorite part of your line of work? And maybe also think about the least favorite, and tell us a little bit about the ups and downs and why.
I suppose the least favorite aspect that comes to mind is when I felt unprepared for shows that I did with my mom, because I've continued to do a lot of music alongside my mom since I did her solo albums with her over the years, and we've also toured those albums, so to speak. And a lot of the time I didn't feel like I was well prepared, and the performances were a risk for me, because I was playing without 100% certainty about what I'm doing. And if you know what you're doing, you can just express yourself. But if you're not completely rehearsed, then it just gets stressful, and it becomes a big, scary chore in front of people. So that's probably the most difficult thing, but I can make that a non-issue if I just become more practiced and skilled. So that'll disappear. That's pretty much the only thing I hate about this industry, because the other negatives don't really faze me, because I'm an underground artist anyway, and that's my mindset. So even if I get into the mainstream and I interact with people that don't have the same values as me, that never gets me down, because I still have the most fun aspect, which is to play to people who actually appreciate what I'm doing. And that's the biggest fun for me, is when I receive compliments, or I am told that the person who heard what I was doing felt like they have inspiration or hope as a result, or just a sense of relaxation as a result of whatever I was playing. That's the most amazing thing for me, and that never gets old.
Yeah, exactly. I can just imagine. So do you have any upcoming events? What's next for you?
Man, I just want to busk in Cape Town and build enough of an audience that I can have a big live Pyjama Shark show. That's not possible yet, because I need more of these. If I have enough of these
fans,
then I can do more shows. Until then, I will be advertising live streams on my YouTube channel and on my Instagram when those will happen. But I've got got some practicing to do on my own music because I write such technically crazy things. So I need to go and create a set. But I am going to upload a live show that is pre-recorded onto YouTube pretty soon. I just need to edit the parts together, and it's got a theme to it, and it's got a story to it, and that's something that has to be enjoyable and special. So it's gonna might even take a little bit longer than I say it will to complete, the same way I did with my albums, because I said that would be done years ago, but it took me you know, depending on how you count, you might say it took me 20 years to make albums, even though I wanted to make albums when I started making music. So
well, that sounds like you are busy working in a direction, and it will you know, it will be fruitful one day. I'm 100% sure of that.
I appreciate it.
So how do you feel the internet has impacted the art industry? Do you think it was had a positive or a negative influence? And I mean, or both, or and can it be used to one's advantage?
Advantage is a good word for what the internet has done for music, because despite the favoritism due to big corporate companies, those same businesses are accessible to anyone now. So if the audience doesn't care about views, then everyone's winning. You know, if you are determined to find interesting music on the internet, and someone has done what they can to make themselves available, they will be discovered. Getting in front of everyone is still a privilege. Being on the trending tab of whichever website is still a privilege reserved for only a few. But underground music is no longer something that just happens physically. It also happens digitally. And that means that underground artists have a wider reach. It just has to be embraced for what it is. So it's exciting to be able to use the internet. It means that you can have more interactions than you ever could otherwise.
And
I'm just happy about that.
And it's accessible to a lot of people, and a lot more than if you would have only have been reliable on doing a show here and there and so on. So, you know, the audience is much bigger, I guess.
Yeah, I wonder about money though, because the product is no longer physical CDs, and the product has shifted from that to mainly merchandise and shows. And artists have to come up with new ways to benefit from their fans in a financial sense. So subscriptions are useful if fans use platforms like Patreon, and that way you can share other pieces of art that you aren't publishing to everyone. And I wonder, you know, because I'm only starting out in reality, even though I've got a lot of fans right where I am. I need them to do their part, you know, and that's why I just hope that artists in general can find new ways to generate income. It'll happen. We just need to keep.
Well, that's a little
innovative.
bit what this channel is also about, and it's to you know, introduce new artists to a greater audience. Because the reach is not only South African, but also European and even American and so on. So it could be.
That's great news. That's good.
I guess this is a great place to ask this next question then. So if there is anything that you could change about the industry, what would that be?
I would make Spotify pay artists the majority of royalties instead of sending the majority to the wrong artist or to themselves.
Oh, okay.
um,
That's unfortunate.
yeah, but at the same time, I should just say that artists need to take responsibility for what's not working and realize that they can take more of it into their own hands.
Okay.
When everything changed with this big COVID thing, my mom went toward her career even more,
Okay.
you know, and she made a YouTube concert with my help. And
I saw that one.
right, I
Yeah.
mean, that was pretty special. And
Yeah,
and she sold a lot of CDs / digital copies of her music that way. So it's all about making our own new platforms on the internet, or finding a new place to and yeah, people need to find a new artists need to find a new place to group online.
Yeah.
That
Okay.
isn't just Spotify
Yeah.
or YouTube. And there's blockchain developments happening,
Oh, good.
which is apparently something that's going to revolutionize income for everyone. So people need to just keep their eyes open and
Of course.
look toward the light rather than the darkness of greedy people, you know.
Yeah. So as an artist, what is your definition of success?
Reaching people on a meaningful level. I'd rather be famous after I'm dead, because fame doesn't matter to me. I'd rather be financially stable now, but if I can have a good impact on people and suffer financially, I am that obsessed with music that I would be willing to do that, you know.
Sure.
So success is present in my life at the very moment that I'm living it.
Great.
Because whenever I play a song to someone that I've put my heart and soul and mind into, and they seem to take something away from that will last, and that's more important to me than making people give me money for something that they would otherwise appreciate for free, you know. It's almost like asking for water at a restaurant. If you order tap water, you don't pay for that, even though they give you a slice of lemon, even though water is a refreshing substance that we need to survive. That's not something that should be charged for, you know. So I would prefer if everyone could benefit from what I create.
Yeah, but on the other side, you have to be able to live as well.
I do, and it's a conflict of interest, because you know, I want to spend money on sharing my music to more people who would not otherwise come into contact with it. But I also need to think about the business aspect of things and not make myself poor. So that's something I need to work on for sure. And a lot of artists do.
Yeah. So what was the effect of COVID on your career? How did you cope? And did you have to make any forced decisions because of COVID?
I really did cope because of my mother. She was already well known, and she was able to leverage what happened politically as a way to incorporate everyone's stress and sorrow and confusion about what was going on into something creative that those people could then appreciate as a work of art. And it brought people together while we were so separated. And I was able to see the best example of perseverance in her. And if it wasn't for her, I would have probably struggled a lot more, because I already struggled with everything changing so drastically. And I wondered if the internet was going to disappear. For some reason, that was my biggest irrational fear. I also spent more time talking to friends because I was too much of a hermit before COVID. And now I have a better appreciation for those closest to me, because even though I use technology to contact them, I still do that now more than I used to. And I take the opportunity to see friends in person more seriously than I used to.
Okay.
Because of the drama that happened in the world. So yeah, that's pretty much how it affected my situation. The work that I was doing in sound production was not negatively affected, and I can only be grateful for that. You know, there are a lot of people who took a bigger knock than me, even in the music industry. So I'm just relieved that my mom was such a genius to make even more money during COVID than she was making before.
Oh, that's very good to hear. Yeah, wow. Do you have any advice on how an artist could deal with financial difficulties?
I do.
Yeah.
Get a job. Take whatever you can at first. Don't be shy to work a job that you don't like, because you can quit the next day if you want to.
Okay.
If you do something you hate, you can quit the next day if you want to.
Yeah.
It's all about maintaining courage.
Yeah.
Take something that will pay the bills that you are qualified to do, and do your best, but keep your eye out for easier jobs. I'm a big promoter of the idea that we should have easier work environments, and it's better for people to work less than 9 to 5, 5 days a week.
Of course.
Even though it's not practical at this time for every person in the world.
Yes.
That is the goal. You know, it should be, we should be comfortable not being busy.
Yes.
We should be comfortable being comfortable.
Yes.
And we should be able to be proud of being comfortable. But with that, artists do need to separate what they do creatively from what they do to earn a living. Not because I want to be cynical, but because all my favorite bands do that. You know, very few of my favorite bands are earning so much from their creative endeavors that they don't have to earn money in any other way.
Okay.
And I would say that if people would look carefully at the musicians that they listen to, they will discover that those musicians are hustling in many other areas of their lives to make ends meet, or to make savings a reality, and not just become dependent on their music. Because it also makes your music better if it's not something you have to do. You end up expressing yourself at your own pace rather than needing to go and do another gig for food.
Well, great advice.
I'm glad. I hope people will listen.
Yes.
I needed that advice at one point, you know, and it's important.
So where can people look at your art, or where can they listen to it?
Everything is accessible through pyjamashark.com.
Okay.
From there, you can find all my social media and my Patreon.
Okay.
And my YouTube is the place where I do the most to interact with people. And it just depends where I grow the most. If I have more Instagram followers or more TikTok followers, I'll be more interactive there. So yeah, just the website pyjamashark.com. That's all people need.
Okay. Well, it was a real pleasure to speak to you. I really appreciate your time. And, coming from a young man like you, I think we really heard something profound. And I really wish you all the best with your career. May it go from strength to strength, and may you touch a lot of people in the process. Thank you very much.
All of that means a great deal, Hans. Thank you very much as well for your time.
Thank you.